I'm going to talk mostly about the book we just published in Spain and throughout the Spanish-speaking world. And if you look at the tie that David is wearing, it's just like my tie, which is the cover of our book. So we are very proud because we launched the book during St. George's Day, which happens to be International Book Day. And as you look at it, this is Amazon.es Spain. And during Book Day, our book became, well, first of all, this is the two of us. We made a fantastic trip throughout the five major largest cities in Spain. We went to, obviously, Madrid, Barcelona, Bilbao, Malaga, Marbella. And that is why our book, during that week, became the #1 best-selling book in health and #5 as well, at the same time. So #1 is because that was the paper edition, and #5 because that was the Kindle edition. This is in health. However, overall sales in Spain, it was #10, which is quite impressive, as I hope you understand. So we are very proud. Our book is truly a bestseller. We are donating all the royalties to two foundations. One, the foundation by Aubrey de Grey, Sense Foundation in California, and another one in Spain, which is also one of the most advanced foundations working on scientific issues. So I encourage all of you to get the book, because all of this goes into research so that you do not die. But if you want to die, then do not buy the book. Spain actually has the second longest life expectancy in the planet, only behind Japan. And actually, in the next 20 years, it will overtake Japan and will be the country with the longest life expectancy, and also, I would say, horrible demographic trend, because the pyramid has been inverted in Spain. And this is almost non-stoppable, like in Japan. Japan will disappear in 2 centuries if we do not revert this trend. And the same in Spain. There will be no Spanish people in 2 centuries if this continues. But again, we will stop it, as I will try to point out. Because of this, different parties are being created in Europe to work on health, longevity. The first one was in Germany, which is the, if you can read some German, Gesundheitsforschungspartei. And one of our friends, Felix Wirth, has been leading this effort in Germany. I'm leading a similar effort in Spain. Those of you who know Spain, Spain actually has this motto, plus ultra, which is the country of far beyond the future. It used to be non plus ultra until the Americas were discovered. And then they took out the non to have only plus ultra. So based on this, which is what Spain means to the world, I added life. So my idea is to talk about vita plus ultra, how we are going to extend our lives, improve the whole human condition. And because of that, I'll talk maybe in questions and answers. I'm leading a political movement, just like my friends in Germany or in other countries in Spain, to take these ideas to the European Parliament. I was born in Venezuela. My family is from Spain, but they emigrated during the Franco dictatorship. As you probably know, that was a horrible time in Spain. And then Venezuela was very wealthy at the time. And Venezuela is an incredible country. I am proud to be Spanish, and I am proud to be Venezuelan. Venezuela is a beautiful country with beautiful people. Actually has the world record in Miss Universes, Miss World and Miss International. We have had 7 Miss Universes. And this one, after becoming Miss Universe, she was the mayor of Caracas, the capital, and I was her energy advisor. Because of a book I wrote about the energy sector in Venezuela, she asked me to be her Ministry of Energy of Venezuela. This was in 1998, which was the last free elections we had. Instead of the Miss Universe, the beauty winning, it was the Beast who won. So now we have a Beast rule in Venezuela, and the situation is horrible, really horrible. I have many important friends in Venezuela, who could be also president of Venezuela. She is under country arrest. She's not allowed to leave Venezuela. This was the last trip we had 3 years ago. This is in Brazil. We went to the Senate of Brazil in Brasilia, and after this she was arrested. I did not go back with her to Venezuela, so I was not arrested because otherwise I could not leave the country. And one of my students, who is very famous today, Leopoldo Lopez, he's actually under house arrest. He was 2 years in prison, underground, and now he's arrested at home. Today is a very important day in Venezuela, by the way. Today it is 20 years since Chavez took over the country. So there are marches, demonstrations all over the world today. So something might happen today or Monday in Venezuela. Actually, if you have seen The Economist, the cover of The Economist this week is about Venezuela. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about Venezuela because that's very sad. I want to talk about the future because it's very good. And just like David, that he works with the Millennium Project as well, he has been leading the group here in London. I actually lead the group for Ibero-America, for Latin America and Spain. And we talk about all these trends. In fact, we publish every year a book called The State of the Future, where we look at what we call the global challenges in the state of the future, and we look at the trends. In the latest edition, we also published some work and technology scenarios for the year 2050 that I highly recommend that you look into. It's available freely in internet, those scenarios. And also I led a study about Latin America in the year 2030. And we have 4 scenarios from the very best to the very worst. We presented this with 4 presidents of Latin America: the former president of Mexico, Enrique Peña Nieto; the former president of Brazil, Fernando Enrique Cardoso; the former president of Chile, Eduardo Frei, etc., etc. And then I had the pleasure to go to the World Economic Forum, Davos, to talk about the future of Latin America and meet with incredible people like the Nobel laureate from Peru, Mario Vargas Llosa, to talk about what is going to happen. And I told him that in 20 years, an artificial intelligence will get the Nobel Prize. And he was worried. So to make him happy, I told him, yeah, sure. An artificial intelligence will get the Nobel Prize, but the first one that it will get is the easiest one, which is literature. So he was not too happy. I also had the pleasure to be actually twice with Donald Trump, and I did 2 TV programs as well talking about the future, because the future is exciting. And let me show in this graph, also because we are in the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom changed the world history during the Industrial Revolution that began here. And it was the first country in human history that doubled its income per capita in a systematic way. Until the Industrial Revolution, this had never happened. And it took 58 years for the UK, for the very first time in history, to double its income per capita. After the UK did it, other countries have learned, have copied, and then obviously the USA, Japan, and other countries. Today, China is the world record in doubling its income per capita. China, every 7, 8, 9 years, doubles its income per capita. And this is fantastic. This is truly fantastic. Today, there are no excuses to be poor. We know what works and we know what doesn't work. So today is the best time to be alive. It's an incredible growth in the economy that it's only accelerating. However, this again only began at the end of the 18th century. And actually, we were at the time cutting what Robert Malthus said, the Malthusian trap, actually based on him. And the human condition was horrible until the 18th century. Average life expectancy was about 25 years of age. I think all of us could be dead. I don't think, are there people here under 25? Okay, 3 on that side. Some ladies here. Okay, well, the rest of us could be dead. I could be dead over twice over. Some people maybe 3 times over. But I'm not only not dead, I am very much alive, and I plan to live forever now because of the advances in technology. Anyway, in terms of the GDP per capita, there was no growth. The human condition, as Thomas Hobbes said, was poverty, early death. What are the...
Nasty, brutish, and short.
And short. That was the human condition until the 18th century. But then the Industrial Revolution began, and the GDP grew about 100% in the 19th century, about 400% in the 20th century, and in this 21st century, it may grow 2,000%, 3,000%. We do not know, but it is absolutely incredible. I like to say that in the next 20 years, we are going to see more technological advances than in the last 2,000 years. This is very deep. In the next 2 decades, more changes than in the last 2 millennia. So get your safety belt because we are moving very, very fast. However, the population is beginning to stabilize and soon to decline. This talk about overpopulation is by people who do not know what is happening in the planet. The population of some countries is already declining. The population of Russia is declining. The population of Japan is declining. The population of Europe is beginning to decline. Spain, actually, the population is declining. It is only compensated by the immigrants. The same in Germany. The native population of Germany is declining. Of Italy is declining. Of Korea is declining. So it is a dramatic change. The worst case is China. China, which has about 1.4 billion people, might get up to 1.5 billion people. And then it is expected to lose 200 million people by the end of the century. That is losing 3 Britons.
What do you think are the main reasons that our population is declining?
Well, there are many reasons. Like in China, it was part of the one-child policy. You could only have one child. But in other countries, anyway, people get married later and they have less children because the children don't die. And also it is very expensive to have children nowadays.
Do you think it may be because society as a whole is kind of diverting itself away from family values in a way?
Well, I don't know what you call family values. I think we all have different values, but my
traditional values.
What is traditional and what is traditional in China, what is traditional in the UK?
Looked upon each other for centuries. That's tradition.
Well, there is nothing that has been the same for centuries. In any event, I think people are changing, and the need also to have children has changed, and you are going to be your child. I like to say that you yourself will be your child in the future. You will reinvent yourself. But anyway, so the problem of the world is that the population is stabilizing and then it is beginning to decline. This is the problem. So that is horrible. Again, in the UK, because there is so much immigration, it is still going up. But in most of Europe, the population is going down. However, the good news is that the economy is still growing and exponentially. If you look at this scale, this is a logarithmic scale that implies an exponential growth. Until the 18th century, the GDP per capita was about $1,000 per person per year. Then it grew up, and then now, even the poorer countries are catching up exponentially. We will soon reach $100,000 per capita in the next 2 decades for the planet. This is absolutely beautiful. We are much wealthier, even though if we are fewer people. But again, there are groups who do not want technology. All of you know the Amish. They live in the 18th century. And what was special about the 18th century? That we were still in the Malthusian trap. So nothing good about the 18th century. There are other groups who are even farther back in the past, like some Indians in South America, very popular in Venezuela and in Brazil, called the Yanomami. They don't want anything from our world. They don't want to speak Spanish or Portuguese. They don't even want to use clothes. That has advantages, but they don't want to use clothes. They don't want anything of what we have. And if we go further back in time, probably 5,000 years ago, we had people against the whales, the anti-whale people. Again, without going too far, let's come back here to Britain, because we had the Luddites here. We had these groups of people who said that they needed to destroy the machines because the machines were going to take away their jobs. Fortunately, the Luddites did not win. The machines won. And because of the machines, we live in this advanced technology. I like to say that what makes humans different from animals is technology. The machines is what makes us more human. And we will be more humane also with more technology. Anyway, 10 years ago, I was one of the founding faculty of Singularity University, where I was for the first few years. And you probably have heard the idea of the singularity that has been popularized by my dear friend Ray Kurzweil on this best-selling book in 2005, The Singularity is Near. By the way, let me tell you, he's just finishing his new book, which is called the Singularity is nearer. It will come out in the fall this year. The Singularity is nearer because it is really nearer. And things are accelerating. And he puts incredible dates. He ratifies his date that by 2024 we will hit the technological singularity. By 2029 we will pass the Alan Turing test. By 2030 we will reach longevity escape velocity, or the Methuselarity. And incredible things. So I highly recommend his previous book or his new book, because this is becoming very popular. A few years ago, Time magazine published a whole issue about the singularity. And if you look, they took the late year of 2045, and the subtitle is 2045, the year man becomes immortal. But for the ladies here, do not worry. Women also will become immortal. All of us will become immortal. But actually, this is only one of the incredible things that will happen when we reach the singularity. Normally, transhumanists, we talk about super longevity, so that we don't say immortality, super intelligence, and super well-being. Those are the three things that most transhumanists talk about: super longevity, super intelligence, and super well-being. Anyway, all these trends are changing exponentially. 10 years ago, when I sequenced first partially and then fully my genome, I used this company called 23andMe. By the way, at that time also it was over $1,000 just to do the partial sequence of the genome. Today there is a company started by a Harvard professor, George, and you can sequence today your complete genome for $99. And if you get other people to sequence their genome, you do it for free. This is absolutely incredible what has happened in the last few years. Anyway, once you sequence your genome, you would know a little bit more about you, your genes, and your genetic propensity to have certain diseases. What is the probability you will have a cancer, Alzheimer's, etc. Additionally, you will learn where you come from. I like to show this because this is my paternal line in the last few centuries. My father, who was from Madrid, but mostly, as you see, from Spain, but I also have some ancestors from Asia, from Mongolia, and this is ratified because the famous people related to me includes Genghis Khan, so no one here should fight with me. On my mother's side, let me show you that I come from Marie Antoinette, so I have a very distinguished pedigree between Genghis Khan and Marie Antoinette, and we will be able to recreate our genealogical tree. And for the first time, you will be able to check, to verify if your father is really your father. But much more interesting than looking into the past is looking into the future. And we are going to design our children in the next decade. Actually, you are part of the last human generation that has not been designed. All of you are here by mistake. You are all an error. In the future, we will design our children. This is an experiment that I did with one of my students at Singularity University 10 years ago, and we shared our genes. This is a theoretical experiment to see the probability of the different characteristics for the children and choose the ones you want. This will be a standard in a decade. However, many people think this is expensive, right? Well, this was incredibly expensive when it began in 1990. The Human Genome Project began in 1990. It was finished in 2003. It cost, just the US government paid over $1 billion, and it took 13 years. Today, this is moving even faster. I have been using this for some time, but today, as I mentioned, Nebula Genomics sequence your complete genome for $99. If you don't want to share your data, but if you share your data or you get other people to sequence it, you get it for free today. Incredible, incredible. So look at how exponential this is in terms of cost. From $1 billion to basically free today. From 13 years to 1 minute to sequence the genome. This is exponentially in time, exponentially in cost. So all these technologies are changing exponentially. Things are moving faster, becoming smaller, becoming better, and cheaper, and cheaper, and cheaper. However, we do not understand the nature of exponential change because we think linearly. And we think that the next 20 years will be equal to the last 20 years. But I repeat, that is not the case. The next 20 years will be equivalent to the last 2,000 years in technological changes. There are 4 technologies that are converging that will change humanity and that will change humans. We talk about NBIC convergence, nano, bio, info, and cogno. The 2 technologies on top, the nano and bio, are the hardware of life. And the 2 technologies on the bottom are the software of life, info and cogno. What is beautiful is that we are reaching this convergence, which is the singularity, in the next 20 years, plus or minus 10 years. This could happen as soon as 10 years, or as late maybe at 30 years, or 2045. That's the year we normally use. 2045, we will reach this point. But what is interesting, that the people working on the hardware side and on the software side, they both agree on this. We will reach the complexity of the human hardware and human software in about 2 decades. And after we get to this complexity, what will we do? We will improve on our hardware. We will improve on our software. 10 years ago, I went to visit Sir Arthur C. Clarke in his home in Colombo, Sri Lanka. He was a fantastic person, a genius. Actually, I published the last interview before he died. Google, find it. It's really beautiful. He was a brilliant Englishman. And he wrote the 3 laws of the future in 1962. He said, first law of the future, when a famous scientist says that something is possible, he's probably right. But when he says it is impossible, he's probably wrong. Second law of the future, the only way of discovering the limits of the possible is to venture past those limits into the impossible. And the third law, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. This has a corollary. If you see something that does not look like magic, it is not advanced. So we are going to see magic in the future because all the technologies will seem like magic to us today. Like personal computers were begun 3 decades ago, mobile phones 2 decades ago, companies like Google, Facebook. So what will happen in the next 10, 20, 30 years? And remember, this is not linear. What we saw in the last 20, 30 years is not what we are going to see in the next 20, 30 years. We're going to see much more because these are technological exponential changes. One of the things we say is that we are going to cure aging because we consider this as a disease. Actually, a group of us participated with the World Health Organization to try to classify aging as a disease, and almost was accepted. Actually, now the World Health Organization talks about age-related diseases. And we hope that in 5 to 10 years, the WHO will actually say that aging is a disease. In the last decade, basically, a little bit more or less, we have been able to double the life expectancy of mice. Today we have mice that live close to 200 human years. Today we have mosquitoes, Drosophila melanogaster, that live the equivalent of 400 human years. And we have worms that are Methuselah worms, 1,000 years old. And do you think the scientists want to make worms that live 1,000 human years because they love worms? No, this is for human applications. And now scientists that have been able to do this, they are beginning to do more and start to apply this on humans. Actually, many people still do not know that cancer is biologically immortal. And I like to emphasize this because it is beautiful. Today we know there are immortal cells. Cancer is one of the most famous type of immortal cells. Let me ask you, I know that you are all popular with futuristic issues, but how many of you knew before that cancer cells are biologically immortal? Okay, I would say over half of you. Fantastic, good futurists. But if you go outside, when we go to the bar later, let's go around in the bar. How many people know? Not even 1% of the average person population know that cancer cells are biologically immortal. And do you know when this was discovered? In 1951, with a patient called Henrietta Lacks, who died in 1951. But the doctor extracted the tumor, and the tumor is alive today. These are the most famous cells in biology. They are called HeLa cells in honor of Henrietta Lacks, and they are alive today. And even though they are a century old, because they are 100 years old basically, they are fantastically young and beautiful cells. This was discovered again so long ago and people don't know it. But there are other cells that are immortal. Not only cancer cells, which are bad, but also germ cells. All of you have germ cells in your bodies, and those cells are also biologically immortal. The problem is that most multicellular organisms like us, we are over 99.9% somatic cells. Somatic cells age. Germ cells do not age. But then when the somatic cells, most of us, ages and dies, the germ cells within us also die. But they do not age. They do not die of old age because they do not age. So when people tell me that immortality is impossible, I say, how is it impossible? When cancer discovered how not to age. How is it impossible when all of you have immortal cells in your body, and hopefully not cancer, because you all have germ cells that are called biologically immortal. So the proof that it is possible is that it already happens. And I am an engineer. I also studied in Cambridge, not like you studied in Cambridge. I studied in Cambridge, Massachusetts, at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and I am an engineer. And engineers like to solve things, especially when we know they work. And cancer discovered how not to age. So if cancer discovered how not to age, do you think that we humans are more stupid than cancer? We are going to understand what cancer did in the next decade. Actually, on top of that, we know there are immortal organisms. Hydras are biologically immortal, and there are other small animals that are biologically immortal. If you still don't believe this is incredible, let me tell you, a Nobel Prize winner in 2012, Shinya Yamanaka, that I went to visit at the University of Tokyo because he did magic. He took cells from the skin of a mouse and he changed 4 genes. And you know what he did? He converted an old cell into a new cell. Isn't this incredible? Changing 4 genes. So this is not only genetics, it is also epigenetics. It's the condition of the genes that are expressed. So by changing the condition of 4 genes, he took an old cell and made it new, and he got the Nobel Prize. Isn't that beautiful? That is incredible, but let me tell you something that was done 2 years later. He took another scientist, not him, that will get the Nobel Prize soon, I hope. He took a skin cell and he changed some genes and he transformed it into a neuron. Isn't this magic? Now I want you to understand why this is possible. Because your genome today is the same genome that when you were a kid, correct? What changes? Some genes are expressed and some genes are not expressed, and it changes with time. So if you change the expression of those genes, you can rejuvenate. And do not believe me, believe a Nobel Prize laureate. What is the difference between your neurons and your skin? It is the same genome, you know that, right? It's the same genome. So why are they different? Because of epigenetics. You express some genes and some you don't. And you change a neuron into a skin cell. Isn't this magic? This we are going to see in the next few years. We will control aging, we will revert aging, and if you have too much skin and you need more neurons, we will change your skin into neurons. So Google discovered that too 5 years ago, and they created a subsidiary called Calico, California Life Company. They have a little problem, which is to solve death. Death is a technical problem, and it will have a technical solution. So they are working on that. But if you don't like Google, how about if you like Microsoft? Microsoft said that in 10 years they will solve cancer. Cancer actually is not a medical problem. Cancer is a computational problem. Because now that we can sequence the genome, we will discover the mutations that cause cancer. And after understanding the mutations of the genome, we can revert those cells or we can eliminate those cells. So cancer is not a medical problem. Cancer is an informational problem, a computational problem. So, but again, do not believe me. Believe what Microsoft says, or believe what Mark Zuckerberg says. And his wife, Priscilla Chan, that they met when they were at Harvard. Actually, Priscilla Chan is a medical doctor who studied biology at Harvard. So she knows a little bit of biology, and she's a doctor. And they announced also 4 years ago that they will donate all of their fortune to cure all the diseases, including aging. And when their first child, called Max, was born, they said that she will not die. And why she will not die? Because they will cure all diseases, and aging is a disease. So you see, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, I can talk about so many others, IBM, Amazon, Apple. There is a new ecosystem of companies in rejuvenation technologies. Actually, that is the reason why I am here in London, because we have a big conference on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. All the pharmaceutical companies investing in rejuvenation technologies. Actually, if you are very interested in this and if you do not want to die, first, you buy the book. Second, you come to the conference on Monday or the other days. This is called, you can Google, Longevity Leaders Conference. Longevity Leaders Conference, so that you see what is happening. And this is fantastic because this is a really big conference with pharmaceutical companies that are beginning to understand that this is the largest industry in the planet. In 10 years, longevity and rejuvenation will be bigger than anything that you can think of. It is not cars, it is not computers, it's not food, it's not travel, it is longevity. The largest industry in 10 years. I have done a lot of TV programs for many stations, History Channel, Discovery Channel. In Spain I'm very popular. That is why I'm starting this political movement. Many of my videos have a 250,000, 500,000 views. Because people are beginning to understand that this is science, that this is real, that this is happening. So this has been the biggest dream of humanity, not to die. As you know, the Epic of Gilgamesh is how to be immortal, but not only the Sumerians in Mesopotamia, the Egyptians wanted to be immortal, or the first emperor who united China, who built the terracotta warriors, he wanted to be immortal. However, they did not have the technology at the time. Today we do. Actually, plan A is not to die. That's what I recommend to you. Do not die. Because if you survive until the year 2029 or 2030, we believe we will reach longevity escape velocity. That means that for every year you live, you will get an extra year, but still aging. Until, at the latest, until 2044, 45. So anyway, but I'm working on cryonics also, because you stand up. Can I have the other book? We are launching this book in Madrid at the Royal Academy of Lawyers in Spain. This is the first book about cryonics, written by a top lawyer and a top biologist in Spain, supporting cryonics. This is plan B. Again, I hope you do not die, but if you die, you know, you call David or me, and we freeze you. So, but that's plan B. We don't want to talk about plan B. Just 3-4 more minutes quickly. You know, some people make fun of us. They say that we are crazy or that we are charlatans. But as a German philosopher, Arthur Schopenhauer, said, every truth goes through 3 phases, stages. The first one, it is ridiculed. Second, it is opposed violently. And then third, it is accepted as self-evident. I guarantee you that when we are in the year 2045 and we look back today, we will say how primitive we were, how horrible we were that we let people die. How could we let people die when we are so close to cure aging, so close? We are living between the last human mortal generation and the first human immortal generation. And where do you want to be? My dear friend Aubrey de Grey, who is coming back tomorrow to London, and he will be opening this conference, Longevity Leaders, on Monday morning, he was actually attacked by the magazine, the best magazine in technology from the MIT Technology Review, as a charlatan. now everybody is basically accepting his idea. So I'm so happy how the world has changed in slightly over a decade. And Ray Kurzweil created the idea of, or popularized the idea of the technological singularity, over the great idea of the methuselarity, and actually I'm also famous talking about energy, about the energularity, the energy singularity, but that is another book. I'm not very biblical, but I love this quote. The last enemy that shall be destroyed is death. And we are going to do that. However, there is a lot of opposition, and I am actually very controversial, also an attack in Spain. And I'll tell you why. Because of the Da Vinci Code. If you are familiar with the Da Vinci Code, the last one just came out, which all happens in Spain, Origin. This is actually Sagrada Familia in Barcelona. The whole book happens in Spain, everything. And the King of Spain is involved. You have to read the book, it's fantastic. But anyway, the first book, the Da Vinci Code, do you remember who are the bad guys? The Opus Dei. Opus Dei, who are attacking me, by the way, which is good. The lost symbol, which is not a movie yet, but does anyone know who are the bad guys? The Masons. The third book, Angels and Demons. Do you know who is the bad guy? The Illuminati, which is a sect that does not exist. But in the last two books, you know who are the bad guys in Inferno? The transhumanists. Actually, it is written Humanity Plus. It's written H Plus is written in the book after the Harvard conference we had there in 2010. It is an honor to be named there. And then in Origin, the bad guy is supposed to be Ray Kurzweil himself. And the transhumanists. So I'm very glad that the transhumanists have two books and the Opus Dei only has one book. Anyway, David and I, we are working on this. We're working on longevity because this is the time. I mean, we are getting close to solving these issues and we need political action. We organize some of these conferences, Revolution Against Aging and Death. I invite you to come so that you can also meet Liz Parrish, who is the first patient being rejuvenated with 2 treatments. We call her patient 0 because of her experiments on herself. Also, if you want to come and get more of the science, come with us to Berlin on doing aging conference in March. Or if you, here is with Aubrey and me, we had another conference in Spain, Longevity World Forum in Valencia, Spain, November last year. And in 2017, I organized another event in Madrid. And just in October, actually, Chris and David are here in these pictures in the Ateneo de Madrid, the most beautiful institution in Spain, bicentennial institution, 200 years old. So anyway, we brought robot Sofia, very interesting, talking with Sofia. So anyway, all of this is in the book, La Muerte de la Muerte. So thank you very much for your attention.
Well, how do you follow that? Matthew,
Right.
you going to follow that?
Okay.
Shall I get rid of this picture?
Yep. Okay.
So
I don't have slides.
you don't have slides. We have 3 different styles of speakers today. So Matthew has been coming to London Futurists for quite a few years.
Yeah.
And he said, you know what? He's going to change the world. Not just
Let's
listen
try.
about people talking about one day something might happen. He says he's going to step up. And so the Transhumanist Party has said, you know, take the lead and take us to what can happen. So let's hear from Matthew.